Since we talked about the importance of the WBS or the work breakdown structure as one of these key inputs of the scope control process, now let's understand the work process structure, which is essential in scope management because it decomposes the the deliverables into a smaller and manageable components. And this structure is not only provides a clarity on what work needs to be done, but also serves as a reference for scope control, also tracking the progress and ensuring that all of the work aligns with the project objectives. Again, it ensures the, let's say, the WBS, it can be used as a baseline and to ensure that the work aligns with the, let's say, the scope baseline. The WBS helps you in tracking, controlling, and verifying the scope completion. Here again is the key role that is, let's say, WBS is used for in terms of tracking the scope completion. By using the WBS or the work breakdown structure, project managers can track the completion of the individual work packages, ensuring that all of the deliverables aligns with the let's say, defined scope. Also ensures that all of the deliverables are accounted for. And this structured approach helps on monitoring progress, preventing, let's say, work from, let's say, being you missed or, let's say, not completed, and ensuring the team accountability. Also think of the WBS can helps you on preventing the scope creep by defining what is included and what is excluded as part of the project. When we talk about the components of the work breakdown structure, and let's recall on what each of these plans will have. We talked about having the level one of the project, and again, it depends on, let's say, the complexity of the project. So a well-defined WBS consists of multiple levels, starting first with the overall project name as a level one, and breaking it down into the major the deliverables at the second level. After you break it into these major deliverables, you need to break these deliverables into work packages as the third level, and then you also have this individual tasks that is needed to complete each of these work packages. Now let's look into the importance of aligning the WBS with the scope baseline, or why we are using, let's say, our WBS in order to control and manage the scope. Remember that when we talked about the scope baseline, which consists of the project scope statement, the WBS, and WBS dictionary, and that will help ensuring that the work packages align with the approved scope. Also, it helps in identifying the scope deviations early. Again, the WBS is essential component of the scope baseline, where it ensures that all of the work probably defined and approved. And by aligning the, let's say, the work packages with the scope baseline, the project managers can verify that no unauthorized work is being performed. That will help you avoiding the scope creep. Here are the scope verification technique using the WBS. So scope verification is a key process in scope control. By using the WBS as a reference, project teams can verify whether the deliverable has been fully completed according to the agreed scope. And this verification involves formal acceptance, let's say, by the stakeholders, also inspections and testing to confirm that the requirements have been met. Again, to summarize our, let's say, techniques and to control and verify the scope using WBS, we talked about it's considered as a formal acceptance of the complete the deliverables. Such techniques, including the inspection, validation, and testing, it's used to confirm the scope completion. Think also as of the stakeholder review is very important on obtaining the signed off as part of the documentation part for the scope acceptance. and avoiding any, let's say, misalignment later. Finally, comparing the work complete scope baseline to help you understand whether you need, for example, to apply any change request to realign the project with the, let's say, the project's, baseline. Now let's move into the WBS for change control and scope management. When change, let's say, or the scope change occur to the scope, the WBS serves as a reference point to assess the impact on the work packages, schedules, and resources. By mapping these changes to specific WBS element, these project managers can ensure that the changes are probably reviewed and documented before an implementation. So you as a project manager, the monitoring the WBS and reviewing the WBS, it helps you as a project manager to identify the unaffected work packages in case of adding or removing one of these along with each of their tasks. Also, it ensures that you update all of these, let's say, WBS, and to ensure that all of these approved changes only are implemented. What else we have here is to maintain a clear structure for tracking the scope modification, or think of, let's say, the scope history, how many times it have changed, who have requested for these changes. Think of a scope traceability to ensure that you have a clear structure on all of these changes to accommodate the stakeholder needs. Now let's see these tools and techniques to let's say to scope control or controlling the scope, or we also have covered when we were discussing the key ITTOs. So here you have on let's say using the WBS and what are the techniques that you can use when working with WBS. So the first thing is to manage the scope effectively. The project managers rely on various tools and techniques such as the variance analysis, where we have discussed to understand the differences or the comparison between the planned and actual values, also to detect the deviations. Also, we've discussed about the AVM metrics, measure the progress, and to the project management software to track the work packages and completion. We talked about the decomposition techniques by breaking down these deliverables into smaller components, and these components goes into, let's say, activities, or let's say the let's say work packages, and all of these work packages will have activities, and each of these activities will have tasks with their assigned team, with their assigned budget and timeline or deadline. So this is what decomposition means. Balance analysis, when we talked about comparing the actual work to planned work. The earned value management, to measure the performance using the scope baseline, the schedule baseline, the cost and the schedule and the scope baselines. We also talked about using these softwares like including the Microsoft, Jira, and Primavera to track all of the project progress. Let's now see a real world example on using the WBS, where a scenario, let's say there's a residential building or a project, is broken into major WBS components, including the first level you have is you have the full, let's say, project name or project requirements. The level two, you might have these work packages, including the site preparation, foundation, let's say farming, roofing, electrical, and finishing. Each of these can be considered as, let's say, a work package. Next level, which is the third level, you have the let's say concrete pouring as part of the let's say foundation. Also, you have the structural work as part of the foundation, plumbing as part of the, let's say, electrical or finishing. So the project manager uses all of these WBS plans or WBS to track the progress and verify the completed work. And when there is a scope change is requested, for example, adding an extra balcony to one of these, let's say, residential building, WBS should be updated to reflect the new work packages. And here are the key benefits to use the, let's say, WBS when controlling the project scope. A well-structured WBS improves the project efficiency and by preventing uncontrolled scope expansion and enhances the clarity among the team members. By improving the, let's say, the communication and setting a clear expectation to these stakeholders. Also, it ensures that the project remains aligned with the project goals, improving the overall, let's say, performance, and enhances the accountability by assigning the project responsibilities. Again, we talked about the scope creep and how it could help you as a project manager to prevent the scope creep by clearly defining the work. In case if any of these work were requested or discovered, it's not part of the WBS, then the let's say the team or the stakeholder has to follow the change control process, including submitting the change request, assessing the impact, proving and then rebaselining, updating all of the project plans, including the WBS. And finally, also it facilitates monitoring and controlling by tracking the work packages. To summarize our session on the usage of the WBS and scope control, we talked about the work breakdown structure or the WBS, which plays a critical and vital role in scope control by ensuring that all of the work is accounted for and completed as per the let's say the approved project scope. Using the structured verification techniques and monitoring tools, the project managers can track the progress, prevent unauthorized changes, and ensure a successful project completion.